We think women need to talk more openly about money because money really matters. It shouldn't be embarrassing or confusing. Join the conversation. We'll be discussing a whole range of topics which will help you get comfortable with your finances. Money Matters, brought to you by AJ Bell.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Money Matters podcast. I'm Danni Hewson and I'm joined as ever by Laura Suter. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Danni. Thanks a lot for coming back. So this week we're talking about the importance of being in work, but also re-entering the workplace. So whether that's because you've taken a break to have children or for other caring responsibilities, or because you've taken a break to study or travel or whatever reason you've been out of work.
And we know that costs are really high at the moment. Lots of people are struggling to make ends meet. And more women in particular are returning to the workplace right now. The latest jobs figures from the Office for National Statistics tell a really interesting story. And for the first time, there are more vacancies than there are people unemployed. But more and more people are also taking on part-time roles. Lots of part-time jobs sort of fell away during the pandemic, but that is definitely changing, which is creating opportunities for people who need to juggle work and life.
But just because there's lots of jobs doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy to walk straight into one. And there's so many things to consider as well. So we're also going to be talking about some of the financial things that you need to think about if you're returning to work or if you're changing jobs, perhaps. But first, we're going to be talking to a charity that's very close to our hearts that we've teamed up with as part of the Money Matters project that operates exactly in this area. So helping women get back into work.
Yeah, SmartWorks has helped over 20,000 women in the last 8 years. It kits them out ready for job interviews because the right clothing, the right mindset, it really is kind of like armour. And they also provide help updating CVs and preparing for today's style of job interview, because there have been lots of changes, when you think about, doing a job interview over Zoom and things like that. I have been talking to Sam, who started her new job a few months ago after a really bruising divorce sapped her confidence and made it impossible for her to stay in the business that she created with her partner. She explains to us how SmartWorks and the team there made all the difference in her hunt for financial stability.
But first, I caught up with Kate Stevens, who's chief executive of the charity, to talk about how they help women build up their confidence and why the service is in such high demand at the moment.
So could you just start, Kate, by telling us a bit about what SmartWorks is and how it works?
Sure. So SmartWorks is a female employment charity, and we are based on a very simple premise, really, which is that when a woman looks and feels good about who she is, she's able to go on and do great things. And we take that simple premise and really give it a profound impact. So we help women who have a job interview lined up, but who haven't been successful in returning to employment. We dress them in an outfit of clothes and accessories that's entirely theirs to keep, and it's styled for them very carefully and thoughtfully. And then she has a 1-hour coaching session just to really help her with the tips she needs to be able to succeed at interview. So together, those two things, the dressing and the coaching, means that she has the toolkit, if you like, to go to the interview and succeed. And we're very proud that after our service at the moment, 72%, which is the highest it's ever been, 72% of the women we help go on to get a job within a month of their visit to us. So we really can show that actually this thing we do here has a very profound impact on the women that we're seeking to help.
And could you give me an idea of kind of some of the background of the women that might be coming to you for help?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The women we help range in ages hugely. We have 16, 17-year-old girls who might never have worked. We have a lot of women returning who kind of might have taken on personal responsibilities or family responsibilities and so have been out of the workforce. We also have older women who are having to return to the workplace, especially in the current climate, and seek employment after a long gap. So full range of ages, full different economic backgrounds. Everybody is in need, but often might have had different experiences to get to where they are. And I think one of the things that really unites what we do at SmartWorks is that, it only takes one or two things to go wrong in your life where you find that you're in a situation where you do need help. So there's a bereavement, or you lose a job, or something happens to destabilize your life, and actually all those things that you can take, you did take for granted, often aren't there anymore. So we really are there for any woman who needs our support. And they do a wide range of jobs. So a lot of female focused roles. So it might be in retail, it might be in kind of hospitality, or caring responsibilities, or teaching settings. But also we have women doing completely different things. They might be going to be a bus driver, they might be going into some kind of digital training course, or they might be going into other really non-traditional careers too. So a whole range of different job prospects.
And so with the current cost of living crisis, are you finding that there's been a big uptick in the number of people that are seeking your service?
Yeah, there's a massive need for what we're doing right now. I think it's really tough out there. I think it's been a really tough couple of years where we're hearing from clients who are coming to see us, that people haven't been out really and have lost that kind of confidence that comes from just having a more normal life. So I think we're very aware that it's been a very tough climate for the women we're here to support, and also just it's going to get worse. I think there's no doubt about that. At Smartworks, we don't create the roles, so we don't create jobs. We're here to help a woman succeed at a role that she might have found through other means. But what we are here to do is make sure that she puts forward her best possible foot and gets the job, because we really believe that having a job can be such an important kind of foundation in being able to transform other parts of your life. So, it couldn't be more important to us. And I think there are jobs for people to go to at the moment, which is good. There are jobs available, but not everybody might feel that they're capable of that job, or that job's for them, or that they really understand even how to kind of access into that job.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because obviously on the one hand, you've got the cost of living crisis kind of having a real impact on people's ability to spend, but at the same time, we've got a really buoyant jobs market with lots of vacancies at the moment. So I guess which of those factors are winning? Is the availability of jobs actually improving things for people or not?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think at Smartworks, really what we're here to do is be the conduit between the two. So I really hope that we're here to help women kind of be their best, reach their potential, and go on and get the job. I think it is really, there are jobs out there. They're not necessarily always the jobs that people might want to do. And I think there is a problem about quality of jobs. But that's a kind of a different moment, if you see what I mean, to what we're doing here. I think the joy of Smartworks is that we're so focused on achieving the thing that we know we can do and make a difference from. So we're very focused on dressing and coaching clients so that they can then go on and get the job. And we do find that once a woman has got a job, often it can change her own aspirations and her own sense of what's possible. So you think, actually, I have got this job, but now I know that I can do this. And I've had this moment where I've reconnected with my potential, with who I am, what I'm capable of. And you know what, I'm going to try for another job. I think I can get a better job. And I think that kind of unlocking is a really important part of what we do.
And in that kind of, you've obviously got two factors to your service, the kind of dressing and then the coaching. What kind of advice are you giving people in those coaching sessions to help them succeed at interview and feel more confident as well?
Yeah, I mean, we're very client-led at Smartworks. So I think it's very important that that's a safe space for each woman to bring to the table anything that she might have that's concerning her. So I think that's a really important premise that sits behind the whole service, really. I think within that, actually, we are all women here at Smartworks, and I definitely think there's a female trait about underselling yourself and not being confident and talking about the things you might have achieved. So I know consistently some of the themes that come up are just about understanding what you're good at, being able to talk confidently about things that you've achieved, being able to sell yourself, really. And then being able to talk honestly about gaps in CVs, I think is really important, and to be able to explain why those might be there, because often it's a case that that might have happened. So that all definitely comes up. And then it's really lots of different types of advice. So you might have someone coming for an interview who potentially hasn't really been to an interview situation before, and it's really important to just go through the absolute basics of coming into a room, of making eye contact, of shaking hands, of One thing that's been coming up recently quite a lot actually is just sounds very obvious, but not looking at your phone during an interview. And it's a long time as an interview. And if you're very used to having your phone everywhere, then that's not something we can do. So it's been important just to go through those basics so that everybody feels really confident in how to kind of really, really sell themselves. And it couldn't be more important at the moment.
Yeah, and so I'm sure lots of people, different people use the service and come from different backgrounds, as we've talked about. But what are some of the common bigger barriers to employment? Is it really around that confidence issue, or is it other kind of external factors?
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for the whole kind of wider jobs market. I think what we see at SmartWorks is that often it's very demoralizing looking for a job. I think everybody can remember that moment where even if briefly you step out of the job market, it's very quick to kind of lose a sense of what it is and for it to feel like this other thing that happens to other people. And I know when I went on my maternity leaves, it suddenly felt like, oh my gosh, I've stepped out of work. It's not me, and it's really difficult. So it is confidence, but often that's kind of multi-layered into other things that might be going on in somebody's life. So I think for the women who come to see us, it's really important that they know when they come through our doors that they're going to be looked after, that they're going to be respected, and that they're going to be safe. And that those are really important things behind what we do, because I think it's easy to become less visible when you're not working. And but that doesn't mean that you aren't proud, and it doesn't mean that you don't want to be heard and respected in what you're doing. So what we exist to do at SmartWorks is to say to women, come and see us. We will dress and coach you for your job interview. But really, it's not necessarily about the clothes. It's about understanding what the clothes mean to a woman in particular, I think. And I think when you do, then, everyone has that moment where they put on the clothing that makes them feel great about who they are. I'm sure, you've kind of had that moment where you've got your lucky jacket, or you've worn that dress that is just right, or perhaps it's a small thing, perhaps it's a bracelet that you wear or a necklace, but something that says to you, this is me, and this is who I am, and this will give me confidence and strength as I go through this very difficult situation, because interviews are difficult. So I think for us, it's using clothes to allow a woman to kind of express who she is and feel confident in who she is and who she's putting out into the world, if you like, so that then when she comes to have her interview, she can really get that message across.
And don't worry, there's more to come from Kate a little bit later on the podcast.
But the most important people are the clients, the women that the charity helps nurture. And I've been chatting with Sam Gilbert about why she sought out SmartWorks and what happened after she did. We're talking to you at lunchtime from your office. What is it that you're doing now?
I am now an office manager at a communications company that's expanding and doing very well, and it's getting busier and busier by the day.
And how long have you been there, Sam?
I started on the 1st of February, literally just a few days after I had my SmartWorks.
So talk me through what brought you to SmartWorks.
I had spent quite a long time in my own business, and divorce led me to leave that business, and it was then back into the work market, which had changed a great deal in that time. Not only how you produce your CV, but also interviewing techniques. And I was struggling. My work coach had recommended SmartWorks, and it sounded really good. So that's how I found my way to SmartWorks, because not only did I need coaching on the new techniques of interviewing, but I'd also put on a good 2 dress sizes through COVID. So I didn't have any interview clothes really, and not having the right clothing and not being able to get through the interviews properly was quite sapping for my confidence, and I didn't know how to take the next step forward.
I think a lot of people know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about going up a dress size through COVID. I think many of us are in exactly the same boat. But when you're then trying to find a wardrobe suitable for going into the office, how important was it to have the right clothes, and how was that experience of being kitted out?
Well, having gone to a couple of interviews in what I consider fairly inappropriate clothing, because I'd already been quite a while down into COVID at this point. And I was wearing a summer dress to an interview, and it was the best that I had. And it was making me concentrate on the wrong things during the interview. So I was not feeling confident in either how I looked or in my approach and answers to the interview.
And SmartWorks, they helped you figure out what to wear. They gave you an outfit to wear, which would have boosted your confidence anyway. But then they talked you through all the different techniques, the kind of questions that you would be asked in an interview.
Well, how that worked was the day I arrived, I had two appointments. One was with a couple of ladies online because it was still COVID, and they helped me through interview techniques. And they did mock interviews with me, which, although it was very mortifyingly cringy, it was very helpful because they did identify very quickly what I was doing, and that was waffling and trying to answer my entire CV within one question. And they managed to, in the period of time that we had our coaching session, really condense some very worthwhile information that I took with me to my interviews, and it helped me immensely with confidence. And with the clothing, when we went downstairs, they looked at my size, they asked about my taste, and then they picked things that they knew would suit my body shape and the type of job that I was going for. So I didn't get stuck in a rut with what I'd normally choose. And I came out with some clothes that I wouldn't have usually considered, but actually fitted me beautifully and looked smart for the roles that I was going for. And they really did make me feel confident.
And how did you feel going there? Because I know it can be really difficult just taking that first step and saying, okay, do you know what? I need some help.
I was okay with that. I had the confidence to do that because I think it's in my natural personality that if I need help, I will seek out answers. So I did seek them out, and I sought out lots of things, and I found them. I found it harder starting work and going to interviews because they were so different. But that was made a lot easier after SmartWorks. But no, I didn't find it difficult, and they were so welcoming and such lovely people and knowledgeable, and they were like your own band of cheerleaders. They really were. And it was a wonderful experience. I loved every minute of it, and luckily I got to go twice.
And you went to the interview, you got the job, you also got a bit of extra help afterwards with wardrobe that you could then wear at work.
Yes, they provide you, if you go on to get the job, then you're invited back to be fitted for a capsule wardrobe, which I can't tell you was so useful, because it's all very well having an interview dress and then you turn up looking like a laundry basket because you've got no other clothes. So they set you up with a capsule wardrobe and you look great, and it gets you through until your first pay packet when you can go and get yourself out more. It's hugely well thought out system.
So how did it feel when you got that first pay packet? Because clearly, I mean, you'd been through the ringer.
It was terrific, actually, and I gave myself a big fat present and booked a holiday to St. Lucia.
And if you hadn't got the job, if you hadn't got, the commitment that those pay packets were going to keep coming, I'm guessing that your life would be very different right now.
It would, and it was different before that. I'd gone from a very stable employee with my own business to suddenly being having to be financially independent myself on my own as a woman with my two children. And although they were grown, they were still at home, and it was a lot of money, and it was worrying. I was the sole breadwinner of a house and two kids, and it was very worrying, and it was very, very tight budget wise, as it was for a lot of people during COVID. So getting this job and absolutely loving it. It's such a super company and it's such super people. But it's been great. It's been really good.
So if somebody is now back where you were before you got the job and finding it tight and not getting the jobs that they're applying for and really feeling that they don't have the confidence to sort of push that door open, what would you say?
I'd say keep looking to try and tweak things. If you keep doing the same thing and you're not getting results, you're doing something that isn't quite right. So you need to keep, it's quite soul destroying sometimes. Try and get as much advice as you can from all sorts of people. There's a lot of help online if you look for it, and all sorts of things. Even if you scroll through Facebook, there's so much information out there. Even getting onto work routes, they helped me with work coaching. They were the ones that referred me to SmartWorks. So little tweaks here and there can make a big difference, but just try and keep going, because the alternative isn't worth considering. You just have to keep trying. And at some point, things will work, because all positive moves, no matter how smooth, no matter how small, are worthwhile, and you will get there in the end.
Sam, really inspiring words. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Really appreciate it. Such a brilliant story, and there are so many women out there just like Sam.
And people like Sam are exactly why SmartWorks charity was created, helping women to get jobs, to get money, get financially secure, build their confidence. Here's Kate again.
So obviously this is a financial podcast, so Money Matters. Its aim is to narrow the gender investment gap, but obviously the gender pay gap is a big part of that. How do you guys encounter that in your day-to-day work with people?
Yeah, no, the gender pay gap is a very real issue, I think, for many women, regardless of industry or position or who you might be. I mean, there are lots of great initiatives, I think, that have been taken to combat this. I think for us, it's really important for us that we give women the very best chance they have of succeeding and knowing their own worth. And I think a lot of that's what this comes down to. And that's our way of tackling it, if you like. I can't really talk for the whole world, but I think that by doing our bit here, we give women the confidence that they have to know who they are and know what they're capable of. And I really believe that moment can stay with you. I think we all have moments in our lives which are important turning points. And it's really important for us that a woman knows that and feels it. And then hopefully then it becomes easier to do other things which are often quite difficult to talk about. And often it does seem it's hard for women to talk about things too that might be financial, to your point about this being a kind of financial focused podcast. It does really matter. It really matters to be able to talk about what you earn, about what you expect from your kind of income and salary. And I think perhaps anecdotally, but it's certainly been our experience that often women are reticent to talk about that. And it can be more difficult for them to talk about it. So we're here to we want everyone to have the skill sets they need to succeed at their interview and get the job that they want. And often that does mean being able to talk honestly about what your kind of expectations are around money and salary, and to know that that's okay. I think, we've got fantastic coaches here that work with our clients to be able to say, it is all right. If you want to ask about that, how about phrasing it like this? And and just thinking about how you talk about these issues, I think can be very helpful. And then just to know that you have to do it, right? That you have to take a deep breath at some point and say, I would like to talk about what the salary is and how that might change and what the potential is for it.
Yeah, I think it's such a big part of it, isn't it? And it's that dreaded question that people always get when they are going for an interview or lining it up. Is like, what is your salary expectation? You don't want to undershoot, you don't want to overshoot. So it's interesting. Do you think people are more open to those discussions? I mean, anecdotally from the clients you've spoken to and the coaches that you have, do you think people are more open to those discussions about money now than they were previously, or is it still that really awkward topic to talk about?
And I think it's really difficult to talk about, and I think it's a difficult conversation to do well. I think anything we can do to help normalize it, especially for women, is really important. To be able to talk confidently about it, and you need to balance it and get it right. It needs to land right, and often just practicing does help. I think the more that you do it, the easier it is. I think so I hope that it becomes more of a normal part of the kind of process, that talking confidently about money does matter. And I think, you make a very good point that there is no doubt that over the next year, money is more and more of a scarce resource, and it might well encourage people, or make it more of a necessity, to talk about money in a more upfront way. But I think with all things, it's a case of, you need to be able to negotiate from a position of strength rather than asking for more money because it's what you think you need. You need to be able to demonstrate your worth and why that money is important for the organisation to pay you. So I think it's very important to understand who you're talking to and how you put that message across. But equally, we always encourage people to, look at, not shy away from having that conversation. Because again, I think anecdotally that certainly it seems to be less of a issue for men to talk about, I'd say. So, I mean, we don't see that at SmartWorks, so I can't comment on SmartWorks, but I think, from bits of my own life, I know that often it's women who are reticent to come forward and ask for things in situations where men might not hesitate in the same way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I guess for anyone out there, it might be in two camps. So one, they feel like they could benefit from SmartWorks and using them, and how would they access that? And then conversely, if they wanted to support you, what are the different ways that they can do that? So maybe let's take the people that might benefit from using SmartWorks. How would they go about getting your services?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. So SmartWorks is a charity. So we're here. There has to be a need for someone to come here. And the way that we assess that need is to ask for people to be referred to us. So you can be referred to SmartWorks from the job centre, from charities that are supporting people into employment. So any of those kind of employability programs. And then anyone kind of transitioning from one set of the state sector to another. So particularly girls leaving care, for example, we want to do as much as we can to help people at that moment. And people leaving institutions. So it's really important to us that we can be there to help anybody who needs us. So in general, if you are kind of unemployed and on the benefit and somehow receiving benefits and universal credit, then and seeking to move into employment, then SmartWorks is here and can help you. And we're very kind of friendly and supportive in how we make that possible. So we always just encourage people to call if you think that we might be able to help. And we absolutely have the capacity to help more women, and we want as many women as possible to come through our doors. So it's really important to us to get the word out, I guess.
Perfect. And then if you're on the side of maybe wanting to support SmartWorks, what are the different ways that people can do that?
Yeah. Again, SmartWorks is kind of built upon the different levels of support that people offer us. So there are three key ways that we need help. All our dressing and coaching is done by volunteers, and a lot of our kind of wardrobe support. So you can imagine, like all good, simple ideas, there is a lot of work behind the scenes to make SmartWorks work, whether that's sorting out our clothing or making sure everything's steamed and on the rails and looking immaculate for our clients, or whether it's actually styling our clients and dressing them, or giving your time to coach our clients. So we are powered by that kind of volunteer support, which is a huge plank of what we do. We also need money to do what we do. So there's lots of different ways to fundraise and get involved with what we do, whether that's your own local fundraising initiatives. We have our own cycle initiatives we run, and we do a lot of sales. So we run our own kind of sales and events and encourage people to come and shop. It's a great, wonderful way of kind of accessing that circular economy, but also bringing in funds. So all that money comes back to SmartWorks. So those are really important ways that you can get involved with who we are. We really encourage people to do that. And of course, all the clothing in our wardrobes is donated. Some of it comes direct from retailers, some of it comes from individuals. So if you do have that piece of clothing that you're not using, like everybody has something in their wardrobe still with the tag on. I know this. I've been in lots of rooms where I've asked people, and nearly always all the hands go up. So that piece of clothing can then be given to another woman who can then use it to help her succeed at interview. It doesn't need to be new, but as long as it's kind of good quality and interview appropriate, we do ask that people send those pieces into us. And that works. That works because it's great to have good clothing, but it also works because then the person receiving that feels that she's got someone on her side. And I think that's a big part of it. It's not just giving someone a handout; it's actually looking after them and helping them step up, which I think is a really powerful message. So yes, clothes, volunteers, money. We need all those things.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, and really appreciate you spending the time today. Thanks a lot, Kate.
Thank you so much.
Kate Stevens there, the Chief Executive Officer of SmartWorks. And Laura and I were absolutely delighted to take part in an event for SmartWorks, along with AJBL Chair Baroness Helena Morrissey a little while ago, because getting a job, it really is one step on that road to, financial stability. So many financial issues that people need to think about when they're going for a job, though. Everything from, budgeting for travel requirements, for childcare, making sure that they're claiming all the benefits that they're entitled to, and grabbing free money by signing up to a workplace pension. And Laura, I know you're going to talk through a few of the things that maybe people aren't aware of, just clever tips for people when they are starting work.
Yeah, and I think budgeting is probably the one where everyone needs to start. So if you've just gone back into work, or if you've got a new job and your salary has changed, it's a great time to look at your budget. And that essentially means looking at how much you're spending each month and how much you've got coming in. And so you need to work out everything that you're spending each month, which is pretty easy. There's lots of apps on banks that can help you with that now. Or you can do it the old school way and look at a past month of your bank statements and see where you're spending money and how much. And then you just really need to set that aside, any money that you've got coming in. So whether that's from your income, whether that's from any benefits or government support you get, or money you get for other income, if you have any kind of jobs on the side, add all that together. And you're basically looking at whether you can balance the books or whether there's a deficit. Obviously, if you've got more money coming in than going out, then that's great. And then you can move to the next step, which is looking at paying off debts or starting saving or investing, depending on your circumstances. If you've got more money going out than you've got coming in, then that's when you really need to tackle the problem. And all of this can seem a little bit daunting and also a little bit boring sometimes. But if you are spending more than you've got coming in, it's really great to identify it now and work out a plan of how to solve it. It can be so easy to just bury your head in the sand and think something will come along that helps bail me out of this. But I think particularly at the moment, with the fact that we're seeing such rising cost of living and that's not going away anytime soon, and in fact, as we come into next winter, it's going to get worse for a lot of people, it's good to acknowledge that deficit that you might have now. And then it's about looking at how you can save money. So whether that's cutting out costs entirely, so cancelling subscriptions for things or cutting back on certain areas. Now, I think a lot of people will probably have done a lot of that stuff already, but it's important to kind of evaluate what's important for you to spend your money on and what you could do without and save a bit of money. And then otherwise, it's looking at areas you can save money. So things you have to pay for, so bills and food and all of those things, areas where you can save a bit of money on those.
And it can change as well every month. I'm quite sad because I must admit, every single payday, I go through all the bills I know that are going to come out, and I immediately sort of take those off the amount of money that I've got going in. And then I sort of think about anything that might come up. So, car repairs and things like that can happen out of the blue, but just that cushion. And I know that the ONS recently did a survey asking people how they could cope if they had an unexpected bill of £850, and loads more people than ever before said that they really couldn't cope. There are other things to think about when you're starting a job, and a lot of people aren't claiming the benefits they're entitled to.
Yeah, so lots of people aren't claiming benefits that they'd actually be entitled to. Lots of people think they're either not eligible for them, or they don't think to check back in when their circumstances change to see whether they would be. If you've got children, then the big ones are child benefit, but also tax-free childcare, which is so chronically underclaimed. We did some figures last week that showed that the government's underspending on tax-free childcare by about £3 billion, which means there's £3 billion worth of money that families could be using to help reduce their childcare costs. So it's really about checking things like that. And then if you're a low-income family, then it's worth looking at a free benefit checker online to see whether there's other help and support you could get up from things like universal credit. It's important to point out that you should never pay for one of those benefit checkers, and you shouldn't pay for anyone to claim those benefits for you. You can claim them for free through the gov.uk website. But you can go to services like Citizens Advice. They're really good at kind of looking overall at all of your finances and seeing whether you might be able to get any support. Because for families out there, if someone's returning to work, then childcare is going to be your biggie if you don't have any family to help. So there's lots of ways where you can reduce those costs.
3 billion is a huge amount of money not to be being claimed.
I know. It's because, it's for so many reasons, but mainly lots of people don't realise that they're eligible for it. The name tax-free childcare just doesn't really explain that well what it is. And to briefly explain, it's where you pay money into an account and then the government will top that money up. So for every £8 that you put in, the government will add £2. And then from that account, you can pay your childcare provider. But it goes all the way up to age 11. So lots of people also think that it's just for preschoolers, but you can use it for things like breakfast clubs or after school clubs or holiday clubs. As long as the childcare provider is registered, then you can use it with them. So lots of people think they wouldn't be eligible because of what they earn or because of how old their child is. But also, having recently gone through the process, it is quite a lot of admin faff to set it up. And I think that puts off quite a lot of people. But it is worth it, particularly if you're paying a lot in childcare costs.
Free money is so important. You really don't want to turn away free money. And right now, I guess a lot of people, maybe they're not thinking about their pension, or they're thinking that, that they're too busy thinking about just making ends meet right now, that thinking about the future financial agenda, it's not top of their agenda, but it is massively important not to ignore pensions.
Yeah, and so if you're starting a new job, then you would be auto-enrolled into a pension scheme. So this is where your employer gives you the option of opting out, but otherwise you pay some of your salary into a pension scheme and they'll also pay some in as well. There's certain criteria where you might not be eligible, for example, if you're particularly young or if you're earning a very low income, but generally most people would be eligible. And then it's quite tricky to work out whether you should put that money in. I think it's a really individual thing of whether you can afford that extra bit of money each month. So if you go right back to step one that we talked about with budgeting, if you've got to that stage and you know that you've balanced the books and that you've got a bit of spare money each month, then it can be a really good idea to put money in because your employer is going to add extra money in. So it's kind of a bit like a free pay rise. So that one's a good one to look at, but just work out how much it's going to cost you, whether you can afford it. But it's always good to get started with pensions, particularly if your employer is going to give you free money towards it.
That is it for this episode. I like to end on free money, Laura. Thank you so much for everyone at the SmartWorks team for all of their help. You can find out more about their services by Googling SmartWorks, or you can find them on Instagram at SmartWorks Charity. Next time, we're going to go back to school. We'll be talking about leaving school and college, getting a job or an apprenticeship, how to put yourself and your kids as well to the best possible start in these things.
Until then, thank you so much for listening, and you can get in touch in the meantime in all the usual ways. So you can email us at moneymatters@ajbell.co.uk, or you can find us on Instagram at ajbellmoneymatters.
Before you go, please remember this podcast is for educational purposes, and the views expressed don't necessarily reflect those of AJ Bell. The podcast isn't telling you whether certain investments are suitable or not. And don't forget that the value of investments can change, and you can lose money as well as make it. It's also important to remember that tax rules apply, and that the way an investment performed in the past may not be the same as how it behaves in the future. If you want help, go see a qualified financial advisor.